Right. Well, my name is Malcolm Edmunds and I'm a Quaker. The Quakers' full title is the Religious Society of Friends, and they were started in the 1660s by George Fox, and the first area in which they were, their stronghold if you like, was in Cumbria, and they spread down into Lancashire and throughout the country. My parents were both Quakers, so I am quite unusual in that I am a birthright friend, or Quaker, and it was when I was in my teens, late teens, and I then obviously began to have religious doubts, and in fact I went down and saw Billy Graham and was saved, which a lot of people were in those days. It didn't last very long, and I decided that no, I really was a Quaker and wanted to remain one, and I've been one ever since. Quakers don't have a creed. There's no, you must believe A, B, C, D and E. The nearest we get to a creed is some words from George Fox, which are the belief that there is that of God in everyone, however you define God. Maybe as some supreme being, or maybe just as the power of goodness and truth and so on in our lives. So that's it. And George Fox recommended or advised people to walk cheerfully over the world, answering that of God in everyone. So you look for the best in people, and you try to treat people all in the same way, and to bring out the best in them. The Quakers, the early Quakers, refused to doff their hat to anyone, because they felt if you doff your hat to someone who is your superior, well, you shouldn't, because you would have to doff your hat to everybody, to beggars and, you know, however important they seem to be. And famously, when George Fox did meet King Charles II, he didn't doff his hat. So that's what Quakers are. I was brought up in Essex. When I, after university, we lived for 10 years in Africa, in Ghana, where there was a small Quaker meeting, and our children were born there. We came back to Britain, and in 1974, and since then, we've lived near Preston and have attended Preston Quaker Meeting. The Quaker Meeting House, built 150 or more years ago, is now the Playhouse at the back of Friargate. Quite a big building, because there were a lot of Quakers at that time, something like 100 in the meeting. But the numbers declined in the 19th century, and a new meeting house, new Quaker meeting house, was built in 1926 in St George's Road, and that's where we meet today. And we have, I suppose, 13 or so would be the average number at meeting every Sunday. We meet for an hour, and there is no music, no singing. We meet in silence. There is no minister or preacher or leader. We simply meet in silence. At the end of the hour, two of the elders of the meeting shake hands, and the meeting is closed. And during that time, one or more friends, Quakers, may read something, possibly from the Bible or from a book called Quaker Faith and Practice, or from something else, or there may be ministry. That is, a number of friends may speak, and after they've spoken, again, there is silence. So that's the way we behave. That's what we do. Because there is no particular creed and belief, and we all may have somewhat different conceptions of what we mean by religion or God, sometimes you have to interpret what is said by someone else into words that are acceptable to you, and that is quite normal. that's what we do. I find the meeting for worship on a Sunday is refreshing. It can give inspiration for the rest of the week. It can help one to look back over the past week and think of perhaps what one might have done a bit better. I think in general it helps improve one's behaviour and the way one responds to other people. I mean, Quakers long ago developed what's called the Peace Testimony, and it was in 1660, just after, they made a declaration to Charles II in which they declared that they would not be moved to fight or to participate in war against any people for any reason whatsoever, because to do so is contrary to seeking that of God in everyone. For the same reason, Quakers object to the death penalty, and they were leaders in improving conditions in prison, particularly with Elizabeth Fry in the early 1800s, who spent a lot of time in the women's prison at Newgate in London, and she and other women made sure that the women in prison there who were going to be deported to Australia, that they had or provided with needles and thread, cotton and wool and so on, so that when they got to the new country of Australia, they could immediately earn a bit of a living by mending clothes for people around them. Elizabeth Fry, of course, is the picture of is on the £5 note. On the back of the £5 note, there she is, that's Elizabeth Fry, in the typical Quaker headdress of the early 19th century, Quaker bonnet. Quakers have always had fairly simple clothing right from the start, because to dress up in elaborate and expensive clothing implies that you are superior to other people. And so the early Quakers dressed in grey, rather dull and simple clothing, because everybody that they met should be treated in the same sort of way.